Welcome to the L36 Podcast, where the global exploration of cultural insights and stories of people making a difference, big and small, becomes the shift in perspective that helps us grow. I'm your host, Stephen Pearce, founder of L36, with my co-host, Nina Winstead. And today we are speaking with Tanvi Pathare, an accomplished classical artist whose remarkable journey began in Mumbai and led her to Florence, Italy, where she studied at the prestigious Florence Academy of Art.
If this needs to exist, then you have to paint it. People can be tough with themselves and maybe say, this painting didn't work out, I'm gonna throw it in the bin. If I did that, then I canceled my time.
Tanvi's profound connection to nature, her exceptional skill in classical painting techniques, and her dedication to capturing the elusive magic of light and movement have made her an inspiring figure in contemporary art. Today, she will share her artistic journey, how her cultural roots and rigorous training shaped her approach to art, and the deeper philosophies that guide her work and teaching.
Okay, welcome, Tanvi Pathare. Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast today. Thank you for having me. Yes, we are so excited to speak to you. And I would love to just jump right into the genesis of your decision to be an artist. Could you, for us that have grown up in the United States, who have really no idea what it's like to live in Italy as an artist, let alone grow up in Mumbai, and you have quite a journey behind you, but can you drop us into your life in Mumbai as a child when you were deciding to study classical painting?
Yeah, well, growing up, my parents were always supportive for whatever I was sort of interested in, and I was very fortunate to have art lessons, and they always, arts and crafts, and we were always doing things with our hands. So going into these lessons, I realized that, it's sort of my place to be. And they were really supportive of my journey in a way. And so, I went to another art school, back home. So I studied, science, until I think I was in 12th grade. And then the whole point of going there was because I was curious, to just study science, but also I had an inclination for it, which meant I could get better grades in order to get into art school.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a sort of an entrance exam that you go through, and that led me to JJ School of Art. It's an 150-year-old art school that is set up by the British back in the day, and then their campus is amazing. You have these amazing plaster casts from antiquity, and the studio spaces are great, and it's set up inside this big sort of space for a green campus, essentially. So we're surrounded by trees, and Rudyard Kipling, who wrote Mowgli, he had his sort of his home and studio within the campus.
Beautiful.
So really, really beautiful space to study in. But it was far, from where we live. Mumbai, as you know, is quite huge. And so my parents live in the suburbs. So you would maybe take a train for an hour every single day to get to school and then come back again. Did that for 4 years. And then I saw an exhibition by an artist who went to Florence Academy for a year, and I saw his work, and that was sort of the moment where I was sort of considering what should I do after. I wanted to really pursue the craft element of painting from life.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the nice part of studying at JJ was learning a little bit of everything. We had non-representational art, we had etching lessons, we had painting from life. So you got sort of an array over everything.
Yeah.
And I really resonated with things that were in front of me. Nature is so inspiring, and it's almost a little bit. Part of it feels like a sport, uh, where you feel like to capture something that is so beautiful and feels almost so impossible. It sort of drives one to want to do better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Interesting. It's almost like a sport.
It's almost like a sport.
Do you feel a sense of adrenaline as you are trying?
Exactly.
You do.
Yeah, can you describe that a little bit more? Because that feels very, as a non-artist who doesn't know about these things, it doesn't feel connected in my mind. But could you paint that picture for us, so to speak?
Absolutely. I mean, it feels a little bit. I can imagine sort of hearing from my parents or my friends, the sort of impossibility of showing something three-dimensional on a flat surface. So it feels a little bit like a magic trick, I distinctly remember kind of drawing these, even sort of something simple as setting up a box of chocolate, or something very mundane, and then being able to render the foil of it, for example, to the most possible degree that I can. So someone who looks at it has this impression as if, oh, is that real, or is that, and maybe it connects to a sort of magic trick, feels like it,
Yeah.
from the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can, but it kind of sounds like because you're clearly talented at this. There's clearly, so those people that get into those kind of flow moments where, you're, I guess with flow, you're like, you're good enough to keep getting better at something, and that continues to drive you forward. And there's kind of there's a reward in that. It feels so good
Definitely.
to be able to create something, especially when you know that you're proud of it, or I'm proud of whatever I'm doing, and I know I can do it a little bit better, and I can keep advancing with it in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe it's the way that you have it interact with the viewer. It's those kinds of things are endless. I mean, I love that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think in some ways, I feel nature is always two steps ahead of you, and maybe that's sort of the way it needs to be, and that's what keeps you going, sort of consistently forward. And I almost, among the list of things that I'm sort of grateful for is I live in a city where all of my colleagues, it's a city that's packed with painters, and sculptors and musicians, and it really it's quite humbling to be around all this talent.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So in some ways, it feels like, back home, I felt I was surrounded by great technicians, but here there's almost like a high density of it, which almost, everyone solves things in their own way, solves nature in their own way, but it's so inspiring I almost always feel like I'm a child, at what I do, because I am surrounded by people who are doing great things.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That it sounds like that kind of feeling of you just stay kind of in awe of everyone around you.
Yeah.
Like, how in the world did you do that? And that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's
yeah,
amazing.
exactly. It's nice. I think someone said that you have to surround you. In some ways, it's nice when you're not the best in the room.
Yes.
It means
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
in a place where you will be constantly growing.
That's why we do this podcast.
Yeah, we are definitely far. At least me. I don't know about you.
I'll make it an I statement.
Yeah.
That's why I do this podcast.
I'm definitely not. Yeah, I'm definitely far behind the folks that we're talking to in this room.
I love it.
So you'll have to forgive me. I'm always a little preoccupied with the way things feel, because I think that we're moving so fast in our lives, and we don't live in a world dense with artistic talent right now, would you say?
Right.
And so if you could tell us, as a child, when you were making the decision to study science in order to get good merits to go and study art, and when you were deciding that you want to be a classical artist, it seemed like there's so much confidence and so much certainty in that. Could you describe that feeling maybe a little bit more? You use the words, "This place is for me," and maybe what that feels like, and how you gathered that confidence, and maybe how your family and your culture supported that confidence to pursue the arts. Could you kind of describe that a little bit more?
I feel I'm naturally quite competitive in nature, for better or worse. And I've grown up. My mom always, my dad being sort of the good cop, my mom being the bad cop, trying to manage me as a personality. And my mom would always say, "Tanvi, whatever you do, you have to keep your feet on the ground." So it's quite a complex way to grow, I guess, where you're meant to do the best that you can, but at the same time, it's important to be humble.
Yeah. So your dad was kind of pushed you into the stars, and your mom said, "Keep your feet on the ground while you're doing so."
Yeah, and
kind of the way it was?
they were both supportive,
Both,
and
in their own ways.
I feel like in the parent team, I don't know how you guys do it.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We're navigating it right now.
We're learning from your parents right now.
That's right.
What do they do?
Yeah, no, I feel like, it is. I guess it's the yin yang, right? So she was more the kind of the fiery one, like the one that's fiery one, like the one that is holding the house together and keep making sure everything is in order. And he is this kind of like gentle giant that is holding it all together with love as well.
Yeah. But they're both equally kind of pushing you forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. We'll always remember growing up kind of talks of, my dad would, like, he's an engineer, so he worked in a big company, and he had people working under him, and he would always say, like, if you don't excel at what you do, it looks pretty hard.
Yeah.
And in any field of life.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the support thing it's just absolutely critical. But it's interesting though, because as you speak, you also recognized that opportunity that you had. Like you talk about this kind of, it almost feels like an engine kind of family support that's kind of pushing you forward, and you recognized it and you took advantage of it. So I mean, I felt similar feeling. My dad is a physician, and I felt very honored of the upbringing that I was provided. And I turned around and I said, my God, how can I give that to the next generation? So I can identify with a lot of that, the support that's there but also not taking advantage of it and recognizing it, that you have this really rare opportunity of a family that's supporting you, because not everybody gets that. But I mean, look what it did for you. I mean, it's incredible, and we're honored to speak with someone like you.
Yes. When you talk about maybe my experiences as far as like the Asian culture with regard to just the intensity that's put behind the school system, at least with us, it was quite a bit of intensity, but not towards the arts, not towards beauty. And it didn't seem like it had value in the economic system, so it wasn't valued as much. But my mom did tell me about growing up in China, and how there was one test that they had to do after primary school. If they didn't score well on that test, they were not going to go to any university, not achieve any higher education. There were no other options for them, and they were relegated to probably a life of, few opportunities because they didn't have access to technical training or education or things that they wanted to achieve their dreams with. So that one test my mom describes as just being, taking years off of her. She has 5 sisters, her and her sisters' lives, because your whole life is dependent on that one test. But that test, it was never a dream to go and take this test and then go and pursue the arts. It's almost as though they didn't dare to dream like that.
No,
A dream that was more about, well, I can go and become a good, what did you say your dad was, an engineer?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can go do well and become an engineer. Was there something unique about maybe your family that allowed that push, or maybe your region or your culture that allowed that support for the arts?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I feel like it's a generational thing. I feel like it would be a quite luxurious thing to be able to go to an art school, back in the day, because practicality was, financial practicality was high priority. So she was a banker. My dad's an engineer. So they are very jobs that will ensure that you have a good standard of living. As open-minded as my family is, I mean, I would have conversations with people on the train. Indian culture is very open in the sense that you would interact with people that you met on the street. You would interact with people you met on the train that you sat next to for an hour. And, people would ask, well, where are you headed off to? And I was like, art school. And they would be like, well, how are you gonna make money from that? How
That
you
look
gonna
on their face, that like,
Huh?
Yeah, the look on
the look on their face, like, what?
Yeah. And then, well, what would you really do? And
interesting.
that was definitely the question that was asked. And maybe it's good in a way that it gets asked, because then you are, you make that question to yourself. And, I would get frustrated. I would be like, well, I will ideally get a studio space and show my work in galleries around the world, and hopefully sell them and make money off of them, and but it does sound quite almost not like a fairy tale thing that you just make up in the air. Yeah.
Well, apparently not.
Yeah. It's wild that it's possible. It's crazy. It's interesting, because even I feel like it's a generational thing, as I mentioned before, that this was possible now, and it was possible because of the quite is there like a word for conventional, let's say conventional careers that were chosen by my parents' generation, my uncles and aunts, that allowed, my generation to later make choices that were variable. I mean, one of my cousins is like a hairdresser that works really well with like makeup and does yoga and all of these things. One of them is a graphic designer, and one of them owns like a bakery. I mean, all of these things were completely not a thing you hear of,
Yes. Yes, that's like that also kind of leads to my next question, is that so you have your passion for the fine arts drawn by, it sounds like, your love of nature, your inspiration that you draw from nature, and then also your problem solving, and how do we present this illusion, maybe also your science background too, and you continue on this journey and draw more inspiration. But what were some of the challenges that almost deterred you?
Before coming to Florence, I had maybe traveled out of the country twice. We did these. It was like a big thing that you took a out of your country trip. So I remember we went to Malaysia and Singapore, and then we did a little Europe trip. But it's quite a dream of, to be able to travel so far that you're now not in the same culture that you are used to. And so the idea of even just moving to Florence and, the money aspect of it, like how much is conversion, like how much is tuition in Indian rupees, like what does like a euro to Indian rupee transfer to, So in some ways, when you ask about like were there moments of like kind of decision making, or it felt I was 21 and, I was completely financially supported by my parents. It's a lot I'm asking, and it's not, I could just continue to maybe study back home and then maybe get a teaching job at my art school, hopefully, or get a studio. It would have been, or do an MA in the same art school. It would have been the more careful trajectory to go down through. So it's a pretty big decision to even just say, I'll go for a year. That was the plan. I will just go for a year. So it's quite scary in a way. My dad came to leave me. I remember I was, the upbringing back home is quite sheltered. So a 21-year-old that I met in Florence from a different part of the world is a different 21-year-old than me. I lived with my parents. I hadn't held a job before, and when I came here, it was amazing. There were people who had worked, saved money in order to come to school, and or had a different career and came to school. So yeah, so very different. And so that was definitely a point. And, everyone's kind of in some ways doubts as to whether this will work out. It seems quite abstract, I think, an idea if you mention. I don't know if and when me and Thor have kids, and if they say, oh, I want to be a musician, and I would probably have the same how do you say, doubts or worries as my parents or like people around me did.
Yeah, but that was kind of the into the unknown. The adventure part of life was I don't know if this is gonna work, but there's clearly a calling to go.
Yeah, totally. And you take a leap and you hope that you land, and I'm sure there are experiences where you take a leap and it hurts,
Right. I've done that before.
You picked the right card, and I was fortunate to come here. Daniel Grace opened this amazing school, and I was fortunate to land here instead of,
Oh, I know. It's incredible.
Wow. Well, so after all this work that you've put in, and you use the word fortunate, and I think that might be a source of, a part of your humility, but I'm sure there's quite a bit of rigor and grit and hard work that you put into being where you are. After all that hard work, what are some hard-won lessons that you've gathered and philosophies that you translate into your art and your teaching now?
See, I feel that working at something that you love will never be not rewarded. It can feel a lot of times that you're sort of going at an empty wall. Today's social media is great because it gives you access to so many different processes and so many amazing artists. But I was speaking to one of my colleagues the other day that it's also an unusual time, because back in the day, let's say we're talking about Van Dyck, Sargent, Rembrandt, even these people's times, they didn't have the access that we have today. So they traveled to different parts of the world wherever they could, and met other artists, and that's how they knew, you were also doing this other thing that I love to do, and maybe learn from them. There were some art schools, but today we are so exposed to very rich amounts of influences. And it can feel sometimes also how small one is in the fabric of everything, it's and it's quite easy also to think, well, how does one matter? Like, how does it matter what I make in my studio here? And maybe that's not a helpful thing to walk away from social media, in a sense, to be intimidated by, because there's a lot of great stuff that happens. So I like to think that in some ways, if you didn't make this painting, then it will never exist, and no one else will make this work in a way. So you got to, if this needs to exist, then you have to paint it and or create it. And so that's sort of a good philosophy. And life is hard in general for everyone. So I think you have to be nice to yourself as well. You have to be nice to your craft. You have to be healthy about your relationship to your craft. I feel like sometimes people can be, a bit tough with themselves and maybe say, well, this painting didn't work out, I'm gonna throw it in the bin. Or, I find that if I did that, then I canceled my time that I spent doing it, even if it isn't the best thing that happened to the world, but it's still your time. And I think it matters. And maybe it can exist in some world in a way.
I love that. Be nice to yourself and be nice to your craft. Are you getting some memories from you and going down your film journey? Are you?
Oh yeah, no,
I can feel your
your
feels right now.
I'm like, darn it, I wish I was Tanvi. I was.
Yes, I can
So, seriously, so when I was young, I started in radio, television, film because I wanted to make films. And I said, no, there's no way. So I was the guy that said, no, there was no way, and shut that door for about 20 years and then came back to it later on, which is about, I don't know, going on 10 years ago now. So, but I think that piece about there's no one that would be able to create this unique piece of art that you make as an individual, or your craft and how you create it and how you do it is completely individualized and it's completely unique, and no one can ever take that away from you. And that's the gift that you share with the world. And that's incredibly important for anybody that I think goes into any field, but especially in the art field. But that piece about really loving it, because there's mundane tasks, even something like this where we're setting up a podcast, and Tanvi says, "Hey, nice studio," and I'm like, "Yeah, I think so too," because this is such a simple thing. It's like, oh, it's just a podcast studio, but in my mind, I'm like, to me, this is my little piece of art that I'm making. And it's like little tiny, like I'm sitting here before we get on and I'm tweaking the camera a little bit here. And I want this just, and it's stuff like that. And so, but in every craft that uniqueness is available to each and every one of us. I think it's critical to share that with people that they might think that they'll never make it as an artist, or they'll never make it outside of the norms of what society thinks. But if there's a uniqueness and a love to what you're doing, you have to share it. You have to do it. You have to, because it would be a critical shame and a tragedy, really, if people didn't do that. And I'm not saying quit your day job or anything like that. I'm not a big supporter of that because I haven't done that yet. Maybe one day I will. But for us that did choose a different path but still have this calling, I really hope each and every one of us in our own, even in our own safe way, some people say just jump in and go all in. It's also okay to go slow and dip your toes in it.
Definitely. Yeah. I think one has to be wise about the decisions that you make, because that's the ground that you stand on,
Yeah.
You take what you can do.
Yeah.
Are we hearing your mother's voice?
It is true. It is true. It's slowly becoming her.
No, I imagine if I imagine like the cosmic energy of Tanvi as a result of your parents, I imagine foot on the ground, but miles high, and you are just this cosmic tall being that's equally in both worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I think she would like to hear this.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Will you tell us? I don't want to miss this because you have some beautiful work behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe pick something and tell us about it and what inspires you about it and talk about one of the paintings?
We pick a piece or two. I maybe we'll find a way to because I was wondering if we could even do a little tour around, but we have this painting here.
Yeah.
Might be cool. Wow. To the podcast. It's a painting called A Twirl in Time.
The Twirl in Time.
Yeah, it's inspired by this painter named Sargent, and he painted a painting called El Jaleo, and it's of this dancer in Spain, sort of turning around. And I sort of, we were in Seville last year in Spain, and we watched flamenco, and it was one of the most sort of amazing experiences. And I wanted to show someone mid-turn, and she's sort of in the act of sort of moving. It's quite exciting to paint something that is going to be completely still for its entire lifetime.
Yes.
An attempt to paint something that has movement to it.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, she was posing for me in my studio, so I paint entire live, and then she posed for me for multiple sessions, and I worked on the background. The background has a bit of copper leaf in it, and I'm really inspired by Art Nouveau as a movement. I love the decorative indulgence of it. Painters like Alfonso Mucha come to mind, and so some of these designs are definitely inspired by his work. I love the idea also of, art as an object, rather than just a two-dimensional image. So I love the decorative aspect of it too.
Yeah. Tanvi, I kind of would like to get into the mind of an artist, because as you mentioned this, you say it was a flamenco dance, and you said that you were kind of, I guess, enamored by it, and it inspired you. But as an artist, when you're looking at something, like, can you describe like why it inspired you to paint it? Like, what's going on in that exact moment that you like? What's going through your mind or your feelings or your emotions? What is it?
Yeah, I feel like it's strange because I almost always feel like a part of me, whenever I'm walking around, going to a new place, there's a huge part of my brain that's always thinking, oh, I wish I could paint that. I mean, paint that. Like I'm moving around like a camera that wants to paint, essentially, or how would I paint that? Or, oh, this could be a cool painting. I feel like as I'm working on something, at the tail end of it, my mind already begins to want to create new images in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly looking for inspiration.
Yeah.
Whether it be kind of a walk up the hill, or whether it be beautiful fruit in the market.
Yeah.
The line between life and what we do or what we create is there's no line in a way. So it's quite blurry, and it comes with great things and magical things, but it also creates not many boundaries of work-life balance.
Yeah.
But
But it's
beautiful.
It's interesting because to me, what I hear is,
it's not that painting something is on your mind. It's that you're a painter. It's like you like that kind of thought process as people hear this is, oh, well, if I really want to be an artist, I should be thinking about painting all the time. No, we're talking about the kind of the being or the essence or the embodiment of the art is looking at everything as art. And so it's this full embodiment of it, that is when I think you know that you love something, because you are that thing, and it's just allowing it to come through you. So that's why every turn you make, you see something that you could paint, because that is the artist, the embodiment of that artist coming through.
Totally. And I think in some ways, what's nice is I paint outdoors quite often, and especially now when the weather gets nice, it's amazing how much you can appreciate a place or even an object or even a person by spending the time in front of it, like spending significant time in front of it. It's amazing how, sometimes when I'm painting, I'm thinking, wow, if I took a picture of this place, that would have taken me like seconds, And my phone is full of images that I was awed by, but I was in front of it for 2 seconds. But when I paint it, I really get to live in it, and really see different aspects of it, which almost it's like it becomes like a core memory. It doesn't stay as like a fleeting, like I can remember the time maybe 5 years ago that I painted in Croatia. I spent maybe 3 hours there painting that landscape, but I remember who came by and talked to me, or we remember how the sun was moving through the scene. But it's not because, my memory is amazing. It's because I was painting while observing this thing. So it's, in some ways, it's a way to process life at a slower pace, and maybe, if anything, in a truer pace.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love that.
So every scene behind you is a core memory.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's amazing.
Like Chan's painting here is a colleague of mine, and we shared studio space at some point. So every painting is also a little like time capsule. So it's that from 8 years ago, and this is when we shared portraits, and every painting has a little something attached to it. And it's amazing how like a long time can pass, but you still remember aspects of it. And I wish I can do that sort of my entire life. Like I won't lose these things,
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
Thank you for that.
Yes. And when you say that you and your husband, both being artists, are just moving through the world, trying to create a world that you want to live in. And it makes so much sense for us as, we're trying to create our sacred space, bring pieces in, create pieces that add to our joy on a daily life. And it really does. And when you talk about creating a world that you want to live in, I know in that context you were speaking about maybe your immediate space, but maybe not. What lasting lessons or what lasting things are you trying to impart on the world as a teacher, as an artist, that you would like to talk about here?
I feel like maybe the underlying emotion is that beauty matters. I think when I think of, painting as a tool, I feel that, and even thinking about the sort of things that we surround ourselves with, I think beauty is sort of the essence of it. It's the baseline for it. And I think to a degree, maybe paintings can sometimes feel, or art in general can feel a thing of luxury, a thing that is not essential. I always think, well, am I really saving the world by, painting a little scrap of canvas? But to a degree, it is a way to go past our usual existence and look at something beyond that and be inspired, be alive. I think it's so important. And so I hope that, I consider it a privilege to be given this opportunity to be able to do this for my life if I can.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so I don't know if this resonates with you or not. It seems like you're very connected to nature. You're very connected to your curiosity and form. How do you get your creative inspiration?
Yeah, I think, I can imagine like a few weeks ago, I was painting. I would take the bus and on the way to school to teach, and you go up the hill and down the hill, and I would constantly see this sort of light that flooded this space. It's surrounded by trees there. Imagine there's like a little monument in the center, and then there were cypress trees around, and the light would sort of cut through them in a very sharp way. And I kept like thinking, oh, I have to go paint that. Every time you see something that you want to paint, I have this habit of recording sort of the time that I saw it in, because the light will be then like that and that time. So I remember, okay, now this is winter, and this is sort of the time where it would be perfect to come back to. But just being in nature and being surrounded by it, and where you are a minority, right? Everything around you is this sort of beautiful synchronization that just works perfectly, and you are this small little blip in the universe, getting the opportunity to observe it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
We usually like to close out. Well, did you have any other questions
No, this is wonderful.
We usually like to close out with what you're curious about. I think that, in the world of film, when we were applying for documentary grants, the question that was the most important is, what's your driving question? What's your driving question? And I think maybe that's how we might ask this for you right now, at this moment in time, and that little blip in the universe and this rock hurling through space. What is your driving question right now, Tanvi?
What is my driving question? I guess, how can I have enough courage to imbue even the more deeper subjects in life? How could I tackle more emotions in my paintings? Maybe images that don't feel stereotypically something that someone would want to have in their home. Like, could I have the courage to do that if life is driving me to that place, or I have a curiosity regarding a certain emotion? I know a few colleagues of mine that are further ahead in their painting careers, and I know that they delve with these questions. It seems like that trajectory is followed by quite a lot of experienced artists, where you go deeper and deeper into your craft, but you also go deeper into your life, which makes you sort of question more things, and you go beyond the surface more and more. And I'm curious to see where that would lead me.
Wow,
that's wonderful.
Thank you. Okay. We can't wait to see what happens as a result of you going deeper and deeper into your life and deeper into that question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. This has been so wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you in about a month, I think. We're getting close.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
perfect. Looking forward to it all.
Thank you for joining us on the L36 Podcast, where the global exploration of cultural insights and stories of people making a difference, big and small, becomes the shift in perspective that helps us grow. Today's conversation with Tanvi Pathare illuminated art as more than mere aesthetics. It's a profound act of connection and a journey toward deeper understanding. Through her words and work, we glimpsed how art slows time, capturing life's fleeting magic, grounding us in our humanity, and challenging us to explore deeper truths. If this resonated with you, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might benefit. These dialogues are just the start. To dive deeper into today's insights or explore the rich landscape of wisdom, community, and transformative events, visit us at L36.io. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you soon on the L36 Podcast.